The first rays of Terra Luna's twin suns split the horizon, casting long shadows across the terraformed valley of Crestfall Colony. Obsidian peaks loomed above the settlement, their volcanic glass surfaces reflecting crimson and gold. Mira Hart secured her climbing harness and checked her oxygen regulator one final time. At 18, she'd been scaling these mountains since she could walk. But today's climb was different. Today would be her last ascent before leaving for the Interplanetary Rescue Academy on Mars. "Beacon activated?" a gruff voice called from below. Mira rolled her eyes but smiled. "Yes, Gramps. And I've got double rations, backup oxygen, emergency flares, and even that ancient compass you insist I carry." She patted the antique in her pocket, a relic from Earth that Gramps Thatcher had brought with him when the colony ships first arrived 30 years ago. The old mountaineer squinted up at her, his weather-beaten face creasing further. "Smart mouth. That compass has saved more lives than your fancy tech ever will." He adjusted his own ancient flannel shirt, completely out of place among the colony's modern gear. "Remember what I taught you. The mountain doesn't care about your plans," Mira finished with him. "I know. Gramps, I'll be back before dark." Her mother, Dr. Lena Hart, emerged from their prefab home carrying Mira's pack. Unlike Gramps with his earth-born superstitions, Lena approached the world with scientific precision. Her xenobiology lab coat was already smudged with the iridescent pollen of crystal pines. The semi-sentient flora that dominated Terra Luna's mid-elevations. "Final calibrations on your atmospheric sensors," Lena said, handing over the pack. "The magnetic storms are picking up earlier than usual this season." Her eyes, the same emerald green as Mira's, showed concern beneath her professional demeanor. "The obsidian gets even more slippery when the acid rain starts." Mira hugged her mother tightly. "I'll keep below the storm line, promise. And stay clear of the eastern ridges," Lena added in a lower voice. "The dragon nesting grounds are active this cycle." A third voice cut through the morning air, sharp as the obsidian cliffs themselves. "Careful, Hart. Some might think you're giving dragon intelligence tips to a trainee." Corin Vale strode toward them, his PERD uniform, Planetary Exploration and Rescue Division, impeccably pressed despite the early hour. At 22, he'd already secured both a permanent position in the colony's prestigious Hunter Guild and an engagement to Magistrate Wilson's daughter. "You're just sharing atmospheric data," Lena replied coolly. "Something all PERD trainees should consider before attempting a grade 6 ascent." Corin's handsome face tightened slightly. "Some of us prefer practical experience to laboratory theories. Dr. Hart," he turned to Mira. "The council's called an emergency meeting about dragon activity. Hunting parties assembling after. Sure you want to be up there alone today?" Mira checked her harness straps with deliberate focus. "I've completed every qualification except this solo ascent. I'm not delaying my academy transport because of council politics." "Politics?" Corin raised an eyebrow. 3 homesteads lost in the outer ring last month. That's not politics. That's survival." "No evidence dragons were responsible," Lena interjected. "No survivors to provide evidence," Corin countered. He nodded at Mira's pack. "You carrying a pulse rifle at least?" Mira hoisted herself onto the first handhold. "PERD rescue protocol prohibits carrying offensive weapons during qualification climbs. Besides, I'm a climber, not a hunter." Corin's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Everyone's a hunter on the frontier, Hart. Some just haven't had to prove it yet." He tapped his wrist communicator. "Keep your beacon active. I'll be monitoring from the dispatch center." As he walked away, Gramps spat on the ground. "That boy's got ice where his heart should be." "He's just doing his job," Mira said. though she'd never warmed to Corin since he'd transferred from the inner colonies 3 years ago. His technical climbing skills were flawless, but he approached the mountains like enemies to be conquered rather than wonders to be respected. His job or his future father-in-law's agenda, Lena muttered, then composed herself. Focus on your climb, sweetheart. This ascent, then Mars, then whatever stars you choose next. Mira nodded, pushed away her irritation, and began her climb in earnest. The familiar rhythm of Find Test Secure soon absorbed her completely. The first 1,000 meters passed easily as she traversed the heavily trafficked training routes, their handholds worn smooth by generations of purred cadets. By midday, she'd reached the transition zone where terraformed atmosphere thinned into Terra Luna's native composition. She paused to adjust her oxygen mix, drinking in the view below. Crestfall Colony looked like a perfect geometric pattern against the wild landscape. Concentric rings of habitation domes surrounded by agricultural plots and defensive sonic barriers. Beyond that, crystal pine forests stretched toward the southern horizon, their translucent needles catching sunlight in hypnotic patterns. The real challenge began as she crossed above the 4,000-meter mark. Here, the obsidian became both blessing and curse. Its natural fracture patterns created perfect climbing surfaces, but its glassy sharpness could slice through ropes and flesh with equal ease. Mira moved more deliberately now, testing each hold twice before committing her weight. The twin suns reached their zenith, then began their slow descent toward the western ranges. Mira checked her position against her planned route. She was making good time. Another 800 meters would put her at Sentinel Peak, her designated summit and turnaround point. That's when she heard it. At first, she mistook the sound for wind whistling through obsidian fissures. But as she paused to catch her breath, the sound came again, a high, keening wail that raised the hair on her arms. It wasn't mechanical like a distress beacon, nor human like a trapped climber. It was something else entirely, something primal and anguished. Mira hesitated. PERD protocol was clear. Unexpected phenomena required immediate reporting and withdrawal to safe distance. Her fingers moved toward her communicator, then stopped. The cry came again, weaker this time, from somewhere above and to her east. The eastern ridges, dragon territory. She bit her lip. Reporting would mean an immediate hunting response from the colony. If it was a dragon in distress, Corin and his team would view it as an opportunity, not a rescue. Her mother's research suggested dragons possessed intelligence at least equivalent to Earth's higher mammals, possibly more. The council had dismissed Lena's findings as sympathizer pseudoscience. The cry came again, fainter still, making her decision. Mira altered her route. She would investigate, assess, and then decide whether to call for backup. She told herself it was the responsible approach, gather data before raising alarms. Deep down, she knew she was breaking at least 3 PERD regulations. She climbed quickly but cautiously, following the sounds as they grew more intermittent. The terrain became increasingly challenging, with fewer secure handholds and treacherously thin ledges. After 20 minutes of careful ascent, she reached a narrow shelf that curved around an obsidian spire. Edging along it, she found herself looking into a deep fissure cut into the mountainside. The crying stopped abruptly. Mira froze, suddenly aware she was exposed on the ledge. Slowly, she activated her helmet light and directed it into the darkness of the fissure. 2 iridescent eyes, no larger than marbles, reflected the light back at her. Mira's breath caught. A baby dragon, a hatchling, was wedged in the narrow crevice, one of its delicate membrane wings pinned by a fallen shard of obsidian. The creature couldn't have been more than a few weeks old, its scales still showing the soft pearlescence of infancy rather than the metallic hardness of adults. As her light revealed it, the hatchling made a pitiful mewling sound, then tried to retreat deeper into the crevice, only to be stopped by its trapped wing. "Hey, hey, little one," Mira whispered, though she knew the dragon couldn't understand her. "You're really in a tight spot, aren't you?" Her mind raced through options. Dragon hatchlings were rarely seen, even by the most experienced hunters. This one had clearly fallen or wandered from its nest and become trapped. Without help, it would die of exposure or starvation. With help, her help, it might survive, but she would be violating the Conservation Act's strict non-interference statutes. And where there was a hatchling, there would be a mother. Adult dragons were territorial and fiercely protective. If she freed the baby, its distress calls might stop, but its scent would remain on her. She'd be marked. Her communicator chirped, "Heart, position check. You're off your filed route." Corin's voice was all business. Mira winced. She should have disabled her location beacon before deviating. "Just exploring an interesting formation," she replied, trying to sound casual. "Heading back to the primary route now." "Negative. Hold position." Something in Corin's tone shifted. "We're picking up thermal signatures consistent with dragon activity in your vicinity. Hunting party is already mobilizing. Council-authorized emergency response." Mira's stomach dropped. "What? I haven't seen any adult dragons. There's no emergency here." "Thermal imaging doesn't lie. Heart, stay put. Extraction team en route." The communicator went silent. Mira looked at the trapped hatchling, which had gone very still, its marble-sized eyes fixed on her. A hunting party wouldn't be coming to rescue it. They'd be coming to secure the area, which meant killing any dragons they found, including this defenseless hatchling. "Mira." Her mother's voice came through the communicator now, pitched low and urgent. "Whatever you're seeing up there, be careful." Corin's father-in-law pushed through an emergency hunting authorization this morning. "They've been looking for an excuse." "Mom, it's a baby," Mira whispered. "It's trapped and hurt. They're going to kill it." A long pause followed. When Lena spoke again, her voice was steady. "What does your gut tell you?" Mira looked at the frightened hatchling. "That this isn't right, that it deserves a chance." "Then I trust you to make the right choice," Lena said. "But whatever you decide, do it quickly and safely." The communication ended. Mira took a deep breath, made her decision, and cut her location beacon. They'd still have her general area from the last transmission, but it would buy her some time. She secured a new anchor point and carefully edged closer to the fissure. "I'm going to help you," she said softly to the hatchling. "But you need to stay calm." As if understanding her intent, the small dragon stopped struggling. Mira removed her gloves to better manipulate the obsidian shard. The razor-sharp edge bit into her fingers as she carefully lifted it away from the delicate wing membrane. The hatchling made a small chirping sound as the pressure released. "There you go," Mira whispered, examining the wing. The membrane was torn but not severed. Dragons had remarkable healing abilities according to her mother's research. If it could return to its nest, it might recover. But the hatchling made no move to escape the fissure. Instead, it curled tighter, trembling visibly now. Mira frowned, then directed her light deeper into the crevice. The passage narrowed dramatically just beyond the hatchling. Even if its wing hadn't been injured, the small dragon was effectively trapped by the geometry of the fissure itself. "You climbed in but grew too weak to climb back out, didn't you?" Mira realized, which meant she'd need to physically remove it from the crevice. Direct contact with a dragon, the most severe Conservation Act violation possible. The distant sound of transport rotors echoed across the mountains. The hunting party was approaching faster than she'd anticipated. Mira made her choice. Using her emergency medical kit, she fashioned a makeshift sling from gauze and cut sections of her outer climbing suit. Working quickly but gently, she secured the hatchling, mindful of its injured wing. The small dragon remained surprisingly docile, watching her with those luminous eyes. "I know I probably smell weird to you," Mira told it as she worked, "but I'm trying to help, and we need to hurry." When she'd secured the hatchling and the improvised carrier against her chest, Mira began her descent. She'd need to find a new route down, one that avoided both the approaching hunters and any potential adult dragons in the area. The safest path would be the western face, though it would mean a much longer journey back to the colony. She'd barely descended 100 meters when her communicator crackled to life again. "Mira Hart," Corin's voice was ice cold. "Restore your location beacon immediately. This is a direct order." She ignored it, focusing instead on finding secure handholds as she navigated the increasingly steep western face. The hatchling made occasional soft trilling sounds against her chest, but otherwise remained still, as if sensing the need for stealth. "Your beacon Hart, now." Corin again. "Interference with a sanctioned hunting operation is a Class 2 violation. That's automatic expulsion from PERD." Mira swallowed hard. Everything she'd worked for, her academy placement, her future career, all of it hinged on her PERD certification. Expulsion would end those dreams permanently. But the warm weight against her chest reminded her of what was at stake. She continued her descent in silence. 20 minutes later, the comm crackled again, but this time it was Gramps. "They've triangulated your last position," he said without preamble. "Hunting teams splitting up to cover all descent routes. Whatever you're doing up there, finish it fast." "I need a distraction," Mira replied, giving up any pretense. "And a secure extraction point." A brief silence. "North Ridge Drainage Tunnel. I'll meet you there." Gramps didn't ask questions. "As for distraction, your mother's handling that." Something about accidental crystal pine pheromone released near the colony's sensor array. Despite everything, Mira smiled. Crystal pines released their pollen in massive synchronized bursts when stressed. The microscopic particles played havoc with electronic systems. "Tell her thanks," Mira said, "and Gramps, I'm bringing company." "Figured as much," the old mountaineer replied. "Make it quick. Storm's moving in early." As if on cue, the first static electricity discharge crackled across the obsidian peaks above her. The thin atmosphere of Terra Luna made traditional thunderstorms impossible, but the magnetic fields generated by the planet's unusual core created equally dangerous electrical phenomena. Worse, they were often accompanied by highly acidic precipitation that could eat through climbing gear in minutes. Mira quickened her pace, pushing the limits of safe descent. The hatchling sensed her urgency and remained motionless, conserving energy. She'd covered another 300 meters when a deafening roar shattered the mountain's silence. "Adult dragon, close!" Mira froze against the rock face, making herself as small and still as possible. The hatchling, however, had a different reaction. It began emitting a rapid series of high-pitched chirps, answering calls. "Shh, please," Mira whispered desperately. But the baby dragon continued its calls. Through the thin fabric of the makeshift carrier, she could feel its rapid heartbeat. Another roar, closer now. Mira looked up to see an enormous shape circling the peaks above. Adult dragons rarely revealed themselves so boldly in daylight, especially near human activity. This had to be the mother, searching for her lost offspring. For a wild moment, Mira considered the impossible, showing herself, presenting the hatchling to its mother. but everything she'd been taught about dragon behavior warned against it. Adult dragons saw humans as threats, period. The only reason hunting parties ever prevailed was through overwhelming firepower and numbers. Movement across the eastern face caught her eye. The hunting team had arrived at her last known position and was spreading out in standard search formation. Even from this distance, she could make out Corin's distinctive red-trimmed gear as he directed the operation. Mira was trapped between predators, human hunters above, dragon mother circling, and now the first spatters of acid rain beginning to fall around her. The hatchling continued its calling, growing more animated with each maternal roar. Another sound joined the cacophony, the low, rhythmic pulse of crystal pines responding to stress. The storm was agitating the intelligent flora, creating a living early warning system across the mountainside. Under normal circumstances, climbers welcomed this natural alert. Today, it only added to Mira's feeling of exposure. A flash of movement, the adult dragon suddenly changed course, banking sharply toward the hunting party. Corin's team scattered, taking defensive positions as they readied pulse rifles. The dragon unleashed another deafening roar, this one clearly meant as a threat display. Mira used the distraction to continue her descent, moving as quickly as safety allowed. The acid rain intensified, stinging her exposed skin and slowly eating into her climbing gear. The hatchling huddled closer against her, its scales providing some protection from the caustic drops. She was within 200 meters of the drainage tunnel entrance when her primary anchor line finally surrendered to the acid, snapping with a sound like a gunshot. Mira slammed against the rock face, barely maintaining her grip as her safety systems engaged. The impact crushed the breath from her lungs and sent pain shooting through her left shoulder. The hatchling squealed in distress, its calls shifting from hopeful chirps to frightened keening. Above them, the adult dragon's attention immediately swiveled from the hunting party toward the sound of its offspring. No, 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 Mira gasped, struggling to re-establish her anchors with one functioning arm. The dragon banked again, this time hurtling directly toward her position with terrifying speed. Mira had nowhere to go, injured, with failing equipment and a 100-meter drop beneath her. She could only press herself against the rock face and pray. The hatchling continued its frightened cries, oblivious to the danger it was summoning. The adult dragon closed the distance in seconds, its enormous form blocking out the light as it pulled up just meters from Mira's position. She could feel the wind from its massive wings, smell the strange metallic ozone scent of its scales. Time seemed to stop as creature and human locked eyes. Up close, the dragon was both more and less terrifying than Mira had imagined. Its scales shifted in impossible colors. Its eyes held an intelligence that no colony briefing had ever acknowledged. And in those eyes, Mira saw not mindless aggression but desperate fear, the universal terror of a parent for its threatened child. The dragon opened its massive jaws, revealing rows of obsidian-like teeth. Mira closed her eyes, certain her death was imminent. Instead, she felt the hatchling squirming frantically in its carrier, responding to some stimulus she couldn't perceive. When no attack came, she cautiously opened her eyes again. The adult dragon remained suspended before her, its wings creating powerful downdrafts that actually helped pin her safely against the rock face. Its head was cocked slightly, eyes narrowed in what could only be described as calculation. Slowly, hardly daring to breathe, Mira opened the improvised carrier. The hatchling immediately poked its head out, trilling excitedly at the sight of its mother. The adult dragon responded with a low, rumbling sound that Mira felt in her bones. "Take her," Mira whispered, gently extracting the baby Sanom. "I was just trying to help." The adult dragon's gaze remained fixed on Mira as she extended her arms, offering the hatchling For an eternal moment, nothing happened. Then, with movements more delicate than Mira would have believed possible from such a massive creature, the dragon extended one clawed foot and gently, so gently, took the hatchling from her hands. The baby immediately scrambled up its mother's foreleg, chirping happily despite its injured wing. The adult dragon made another rumbling sound, this one somehow different in tone and meaning. "You're welcome," Mira found herself answering, though she knew the creature couldn't understand human speech. A shout from above broke the moment. The hunting party had repositioned, drawn by the commotion, pulse rifle sights trained on the exposed dragon. "Uhart, get clear," Corin's voice carried across the distance. "Move now!" The dragon's head snapped up, its pupils narrowing to slits as it identified this new threat. With the hatchling now secure against its chest, the adult's demeanor changed instantly from cautious to combat-ready. It inhaled deeply, and Mira recognized the precursor to a flame attack. "No!" she shouted, waving her good arm desperately at the hunting party. "Stand down! No threat! Stand down!" Either they couldn't hear her over the intensifying storm, or they chose to ignore her. A pulse rifle discharged, its energy bolt sizzling past the dragon's wing. The near miss was enough. The dragon released a torrent of flame toward the hunters, forcing them to scatter and take cover. In the chaos that followed, Mira lost her already precarious footing. Her remaining anchor gave way, and suddenly she was falling, tumbling down the obsidian face with nothing to break her descent. The ground rushed up to meet her, and she had just enough time to think of her mother, of Gramps, of the academy dreams that would die with her. Something massive moved beneath her, a jarring impact, not against rock but against something yielding yet strong. The world spun crazily, and then she was rising, not falling, secured somehow against the scaled back of the adult dragon. The creature had caught her. Impossible. Mira's mind struggled to process what was happening as the dragon banked away from the mountain face. The hatchling still clutched securely to its chest. Mira sprawled across its back. Below them, the hunting party regrouped, several pulse rifles tracking their flight, but no one fired. Perhaps they feared hitting Mira, or perhaps the sheer impossibility of what they were witnessing stayed their hands. The dragon soared away from the immediate danger, riding the storm winds with effortless grace. Mira clung to the scaled ridges of its back, her injured arm screaming in protest. They were heading not toward the eastern nesting grounds, as she'd expected, but north, toward the drainage tunnel where Gramps waited. "You understand," Mira whispered, the realization dawning through her pain and confusion. "Somehow, you understand." The dragon made no response she could discern, but its flight path remained steady toward the extraction point she'd arranged with Gramps. As they approached, the dragon slowed, descending carefully toward a wide shelf that marked the tunnel entrance. Mira could make out a solitary figure waiting there, the unmistakable flannel shirt visible even through the now pounding acid rain. The dragon hovered, its powerful wings creating a protective canopy that temporarily blocked the worst of the downpour. With movements that seemed almost gentle, it lowered itself until Mira could slide from its back onto the relatively safe ground of the shelf. The moment her feet touched rock, the dragon retreated several meters, hovering just beyond the ledge. Gramps rushed forward, his ancient weather gear sizzling slightly where the acid rain had penetrated. "By all the earth mountains," he breathed, taking in the scene before him. "It's really true." Mira swayed on her feet, clutching her injured shoulder. "Gramps, we need to go. Hunting party." "Not before I see this," the old mountaineer said, his eyes fixed on the dragon. "Your mother's research, all of it." The dragon remained suspended before them, the hatchling now perched on its back, watching the humans with evident curiosity. Slowly, deliberately, the adult dragon opened its massive jaws. Instead of flame, a complex pattern of lights flickered deep in its throat. Reds, blues, golds in rapid sequence. Fire speech, Mira whispered, remembering her mother's theoretical papers that the council had so quickly dismissed. They're intelligent. Gramps, fully intelligent. The old man nodded slowly. More than that, they're trying to talk to us. The light patterns continued, shifting in complexity. Then, to Mira's astonishment, the dragon extended one massive foreclaw, and from it dropped something small and glittering onto the ledge before them. Gramps stooped to pick it up. Well, I'll be damned, he said quietly. It's a data crystal, one of ours. Before Mira could process this new impossibility, the sound of approaching rotors cut through the storm. The hunting party had regrouped and was closing in. The dragon's head swiveled toward the sound, its light speech pattern changing abruptly. They're coming, Mira warned the creature, gesturing urgently toward the approaching threat. The dragon made one final rumbling sound. Then, with surprising speed, it wheeled away from the ledge and soared upward into the storm clouds. Just before it disappeared completely, it released a massive, sustained roar that echoed across the mountains. Within moments, the sky darkened further, not with storm clouds, but with wings. Dragons, dozens of them, materializing from hiding places Mira would have sworn couldn't conceal such massive creatures. They converged on the hunting party transports, not attacking directly but creating a defensive formation that forced the vehicles to retreat or risk collision. Mother of Earth, Gramps breathed. A coordinated defense. They're protecting us. Protecting their young, Mira corrected, though she wasn't entirely convinced that was the whole truth. And maybe saying thank you. Gramps helped her into the relative safety of the drainage tunnel as the aerial standoff continued outside. Your mother's going to have a field day with this, he said, examining her injured shoulder with practiced hands. Coordinated dragon response. Interspecies communication tool usage. The council can't ignore this evidence. They'll try. Mira winced as he applied a pressure bandage. Corin saw everything. He'll spin it as an attack. Maybe, Gramps conceded, but your helmet cam was running the whole time, wasn't it? Standard PERD protocol? Despite everything, Mira smiled. Every second, from first contact to the rescue. Rescue, Gramps chuckled, shaking his head. Not sure if you mean you rescuing the hatchling or Mama Dragon rescuing you. Both, Mira said simply, so that's the whole point. By the time they emerged from the tunnel system at its lower exit, the storm had passed and the dragons had vanished as completely as if they'd never existed. A colony security transport waited for them. Lena pacing anxiously beside it. Oh, thank the stars, she breathed, enfolding Mira in a careful embrace that avoided her injured shoulder. When your beacon went dark, I feared the worst. Mom, Mira said, her voice thick with emotion and exhaustion. Everything you theorized, the intelligence, the communication, the social structures, it's all true. I saw it. I experienced it. Lena's eyes widened. You made contact? More than contact, Gramps interjected, producing the data crystal the dragon had given them. They've been watching us, studying us, just as we've been studying them. Lena took the crystal with trembling hands. This changes everything. If the council accepts the evidence, Mira cautioned. They'll have to, came a new voice. Corin Vale emerged from the transport, his hunting gear discarded, his expression unreadable. 43 witnesses, including the entire magistrate's hunting party, plus your helmet feed, which has already gone viral in the colony network. Mira tensed. Here to arrest me for Conservation Act violations? Corin's mouth twisted in what might have been a reluctant smile. Actually, I'm here to inform you that the Council has called an emergency session to review the act in light of new evidence. Your evidence. He paused. And to say you were right. About the dragon. About everything. About... The admission clearly cost him. But there was something different in his eyes now. Respect, perhaps. Or at least the beginning of understanding. What about my PERD certification? Mira asked. My academy transport leaves tomorrow. Certification confirmed and upgraded. Corin replied. The academy's already requesting copies of your encounter data. Seems you've given them a whole new field of study. He hesitated, then extended his hand. No hard feelings? Mira considered him for a moment, then accepted the handshake. No hard feelings. But this is just the beginning, Vale. Everything has to change now. How we see this planet, how we interact with its native life. One step at a time. Heart, he said, retreating toward the transport. Council meeting in 2 hours. All of you should be there. He nodded at Lena. Especially you. Doctor. Your research is suddenly the most important data on Terra Luna. As the transport departed, Mira leaned against her mother, suddenly overwhelmed by the day's events. Did that really just happen? She asked quietly. Did I really ride a dragon? Lena laughed softly. And revolutionize human-dragon relations in a single afternoon? Yes, you really did. She squeezed Mira's good shoulder. I'm so proud of you. The academy's going to have questions, Mira said. Lots of questions. Let them ask, Gramps said, falling into step beside them as they began the walk back to the colony. You've got better answers than anyone in the system now. As they crested the final rise that overlooked Crestfall, Mira spotted something unexpected in the sky above the colony. A single dragon, circling lazily in the clear post-storm air. Not hiding, not threatening, simply present, visible to any who cared to look up. Mira smiled. Change was coming, faster than anyone had expected. Her last day on Terra Luna had turned into the first day of something entirely new. 3 weeks later, Mira stood at the boarding ramp of the interplanetary transport, her newly healed shoulder strong enough to support the weight of her expedition pack. The council sessions had been exhausting but productive. A new Dragon Communication Initiative had been established with her mother as lead researcher, and the Conservation Act had been provisionally amended to allow for supervised, non-invasive contact. Comm channels open, Lena reminded her, adjusting Mira's academy uniform collar. Daily updates on the initiative's progress. And no stunts, Gramps added gruffly, though his eyes twinkled. The academy doesn't need you showing up other cadets by dragon diving on Mars. Mira laughed. I'll be focused on my studies, promise. She hugged them both, then shouldered her pack and turned toward the transport. Mira. Corin's voice made her pause. He approached with something in his hands. A small, carved obsidian figurine of a dragon in flight. From the guild, a token of respect. She accepted it with surprise. Thank you. I'll treasure it. Corin nodded awkwardly. Safe journey, Heart. He hesitated, then added, when you come back, there'll be a place for you in the initiative. If you want it, I'll think about it, she promised, though they both knew her horizons had expanded far beyond Crestfall now. As the transport doors sealed behind her and the engines powered up for departure. Mira settled into her seat and carefully opened the innermost pocket of her pack. Nestled there, wrapped in protective thermal fabric, lay a smooth, iridescent object the size of her palm, a dragon egg. The mother dragon had pressed it into her hands during their final secret meeting 3 nights ago. A meeting arranged through the primitive light speech patterns Lena had begun to decode. The meaning had been unmistakable. A trust, a bridge between species, a future to be shared. "I'll protect you," Mira whispered to the egg as the transport lifted off, carrying her toward Mars, toward the Academy, toward a destiny neither she nor anyone in the colony could have imagined just weeks ago. "And when you hatch, we'll show them all what's possible when we choose compassion over fear." Outside her viewport, as Terra Luna receded below, a formation of dragons appeared, pacing the transport briefly before peeling away in a coordinated aerial display that could only be described as a farewell salute. Mira placed her hand against the cold viewport glass, her heart full. "Until we meet again," she promised the distant figures. "This is just the beginning." The egg pulsed warmly in her lap, as if in agreement.